My name is Cherie Muley. I'm based in Colorado in the United States. And for this presentation, I'm going to tell you about a project that we assisted on with a company in Brazil. And the purpose of this project is really starting to look at what we can do to help in the Amazon rainforest. So as you can see, the title of this one is Exploring the Latest Innovations in SAR Analytics and its Role in the Amazon. When you think of the Amazon, you think of the large rainforest. About 60% of it is within Brazil entirely. And if you think about it, it is the area of the most biodiversity in the entire world. It has the most areas of all the vegetation, plant, animal species in the entire world. It's incredible. 1 out of every 5 bird species is within the Amazon. 1 out of every plant species is within the Amazon. And it's considered really this type of repository of ecological services, and not only for the tribes and also communities, but also for the rest of the world. It's often called the lungs of the planet for their role in absorbing carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases, and they produce oxygen, upon which many animals and also the plants depend on for survival. And you can imagine any sort of disruption in this fragile and vast ecosystem has really wide-reaching effects for the entire area. Now, one of the things that's been a problem in the rainforest in Brazil is the deforestation. You can see here with this chart, over time, there's been peaks of great deforestation, but still ongoing deforestation that's been happening throughout the entire region. And this is a problem. There's many different causes for the deforestation that's happening there in the rainforest, from cattle ranching, that's been increasing, and some of this is legal cattle ranching. But when we start getting into this factor increasing over time, now we're starting to get into increased methane, increased greenhouse gases. And within that type of environment, that has a very large negative effect upon the entire region. There's also small-scale different types of agricultural farming, large-scale agricultural applications, and some of the areas that we're going to focus on for this study, what we're really looking at now is some of the illegal activity as well. So within the rainforest, there's also a lot of illegal logging and also fires, illegal mining, different types of road construction, and other types of aircraft landing area construction that has been going on. And all of this is contributing to the deforestation of the rainforest. So I'll introduce you to the Amazonia SAR project. They've been looking at trying to understand how 17% of the forest cover have been lost in the past 50 years. Now, this project that has been going on is complementary to a previous project that had been in place in Brazil. But this started years ago. And the point of that project is, how can we start tracking this deforestation? How can we track these illegal activities and put an alert system in place to be able to catch what's happening in time? So this is the new generation of that type of deterrent project to help try to control what's happening and get that surveillance and understand what's happening and control the deforestation. Now, if you look at the size of the Amazon here, there's 5.5 million square kilometers to monitor. That is a vast area to be able to monitor. And only one of the ways we can really do that is now by taking advantage of different types of satellite imagery to be able to see what's happening at a much broader scale. We started this a few years ago. It's a 5-year project for this particular phase of it, from 2015 to 2019. And this has been underway, and there's already been success in being able to start doing this type of work of getting images and getting these alerts. And it's been funded by the Amazon Fund and the Brazilian government. There's been a lot of different parts and other funding sources that have gone into trying to understand what's happening, how we can slow down this process. Some of the objectives of that, of course, is to use these orbital radar images so that we can start looking across the entire Amazon and start doing some of this monitoring. We've already been doing a lot of monitoring, and they've already collected 950,000 square kilometers monthly. Now, the problem here in this area, in this part of the world, is that they suffer from a lot of rain season, a lot of cloud cover, and that is a big challenge to be able to start trying to do monitoring of an area that is so vast like this. And they're looking for detection, like I said, of clear-cut areas or selective cuts that aren't supposed to be happening, illegal mining, clandestine airstrips. And one of the problems in this part of the world is that the people that have been engaged with these illegal activities, they're quite clever. They have a knowledge of satellite orbiting systems. They know that these different types of images for optical imagery are collected in the daytime. They know that if the weather is generally clear and not so cloudy, they know that's when the collects happen. So they've been taking advantage of doing illegal activities at night, and when there's a lot of rainstorms or a lot of heavy cloud cover, they've learned that, well, if we're doing the activities then, optical imagery can't visibly see what's happening, so they can get away with that activity. So what we've been able to help them understand is that if they use SAR data, which is synthetic aperture radar data, now we can start getting around these problems of having a collect only in clear daylight or only in the daytime. Now what we can do is collect at night and during the rainy season. This is a penetrating type of energy collect from a SAR sensor. So now what we can do is take advantage of collecting during the nighttime. It can penetrate the clouds. It can penetrate the type of rainstorms that are happening. So it doesn't matter what time of day that we're doing these collects now. Now we can take advantage and really start getting the information we need to be able to monitor what's happening on the ground. So within a couple phases of this project, the first phase was making sure that we can start getting the images, get the aircraft equipped with the sensors, and be able to really take advantage of collecting that data, implement the infrastructure, and understand the workflow for getting the data production going. Phase 2, automate this production, start IDing new areas as quickly as possible, and get that alerting system in place so that the clients can understand and know where this activity is happening, especially when we start getting into a lot of this illicit activity of illegal aircraft locations, illegal mining, things that have broad-reaching effects across just deforestation. They need an alert right away to know what's happening. So within this project, we were able to help them identify all the different locations around the rainforest in Brazil, so where they can start setting up different stations to help with the monitoring. There were some more remote locations like Porto Velho and Manaus, Belém, but they're able to isolate and put in Brasilia a center of the main location where they're going to be doing all of the collect and analysis for the ground station work and getting those images ready to go for analysis. And here's an example of one of the facilities that was built to help with this project. And this is a graphic from some of the work that they've done. So this is their workflow that they've been able to do. But you can see that it's a very broad-reaching workflow to be able to have these different ground stations around the entire rainforest location and outside of that in Brazil, collect different types of imagery and be able to access that. And of course, they're doing it from an enterprise type of environment. And so they're able to go ahead and collect all the imagery, start doing the analysis on it. In the middle piece there, the SARscape software is what we have to help them analyze the SAR imagery that they are collecting so they can understand what's happening at night and through the clouds and start doing these different types of detections. The different locations are responsible for different types of analysis, and then they're starting to be able to do those alerts to be able to reach that out into the community so they understand where the deforestation area is occurring, where has there been mining that happened overnight, or where was there some sort of structure that was built that wasn't there in the previous day. How do we get that alert out to the community as quickly as possible? So using these different types of data, we're able to start now showing them how they can get from analytics to answers. Using SAR analysis and data fusion by combining different types of SAR data and the optical data, now we can start seeing what's happening to characterize the changes over time. They can collect data for different types of temporal time periods, so we can see now not only what's happened overnight, but what's happened over the course of a week, a month, longer periods of time, how much of the rainforest is being deforested in these different locations. So we can just look at some examples, because looking with SAR imagery is different than the optical data. This is a different type of data now that we're working with. But we can start looking at this type of analysis and understand, okay, we can see these areas now where there's been a deforestation. Let's start going ahead and detecting that, finding the different areas through the vegetation and through the cloud cover at night, isolating these regions, and being able to start extracting that information to be able to share that as an alert. They did this across hundreds of thousands of square kilometers worth of imagery. They were able to get these detections out, find these different locations where they're showing these different deforestations or illegal activities that are happening. The next phase, of course, is to do some validation with that. So they had teams that were able to go around the country and start looking at these particular locations to validate what is it that we're seeing on the ground. We need to make sure and check that, of course, our processes are working the way that we expect them to do. So they were able to go and look at different locations. On the top is a graphic of a team that was going out to do a lot of the validation. And they selected a number of the different regions that are shown in red to see what is it that we're seeing. And there's a graphic on the bottom of one of the deforestation areas. So yes, we can go ahead and verify, get that truth data to make sure that the project knows and the program is aware that yes, this processing is occurring the way that we expect it to do. So we went ahead and continued with a lot of the processing of the data. Let's keep working with different types of either freely available data or commercially available data to start doing some of the processing and finding these areas of deforestation. And once they're able to start processing the data, now we're looking at these different types of reports. Now we can see likely mining areas with an airstrip associated with it, other likely mining areas with airstrips, and other isolated airstrips for other illegal activities. These would be ones that would crop up within sometimes a fairly short amount of time, or ones that they weren't able to detect before because they weren't able to have access to understand what's happening overnight or through months of cloud cover and months of rainy season. So you can imagine if the people who engage in illicit activity know that there's going to be a cloud cover for the next 2 months, they can get a lot of work done that no one wants them to have that activity done. So we're able to start finding these detections and showing where these different locations are occurring and help them understand what they can need to do to be able to show this type of alert to the customer. One of the things that we're able to help them do too is take a very complex processing chain of data analysis, working with the different types of SAR data. We need to be able to make sure we're understanding temporal analysis very well. How do we do different types of corrections? Fuse that with other optical data to get additional information. And they had a very complex workflow. They knew what they needed to do. They knew what results they needed to get in the end. But we were able to work with them and say, okay, if you take that workflow and use that within our modeler program, now we can start automating this and link these different capabilities together. Now, this is within our Envy software. We have a modeler application, which is very similar to a model builder type of program, where we can take these different categories of work that needs to be done, put it into these different little buckets here that you can see, set the parameters. Now we can automate the processing for them. So we help them with this, be able to show them this is the processing workflow to get what they need to get done. And now once they have these models, you can deploy this in many different locations. We can deploy this in desktop environments. We can deploy this on enterprise environments, ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Server. So depending on where those usages were being needed and what sort of environment they need to deploy them in, now they have access to these results and we can help them automate that process wherever that needs to happen. So this is a great way that we're able to help drive some of those efficiencies and take these different types of image analysis workflows and build that into a model for them. And this is just an example, too, that even though we're building these different models, now they're getting some of the code behind it as well, again, to help automate these processes for what they need to do across the different locations. And then we can help deploy that as a web page as well. So now that when they have some of the different groups that need to log in from a website or different branches of the organization that need to see what's happening and what some of the alerts are looking like, now we can start doing that here. So here's an example of a web page that we can build for them to say, okay, this is an area of recent deforestation. Here's an area that is showing some different activity in the last time periods. Let's go ahead and take a look at that and see what's happening. So then in the end, we're able to show them a lot of different types of deforested regions. So here we can start looking at some of the different types of imagery, combine that with different types of optical imagery as well. We can run different types of vegetation analysis to understand what actually are vegetated areas, what's been changing, what's some of the health of the different areas that we're looking at, what are some of the soil analysis that we can do, moisture analysis. This helps all feed into the whole analysis of what is actually happening on the ground and what sort of new activity has occurred. This helps us differentiate a little bit between what's happening, for example, if it was previously forested and now it's being deforested versus a different type of construction and what is actually now perhaps an airstrip, for example. So we can see that this is through the clouds, this is a dirt that's been disturbed, or this is a clear-cut type of felled tree region. So these different types of analysis can help differentiate what we're actually seeing on the ground. And then we start doing these different changes over time. Now we're running this over different periods of years or months or weeks, depending on what the analysis needs to have. So now we can start really getting that temporal analysis and give them that visibility into what is happening over time and give them those reports. So now we can see these are the areas that have been most recently affected. What does an alert look like to them? They're able to get that within their different websites and different systems and be able to show them, okay, this is a new area of something that happened. We need to send a team out to go investigate this particular location. One of the things, too, that we've been able to help them with is now bring that into what we call a modern cloud infrastructure deployment. So within their particular system, they had some older infrastructure initially within these different locations around the country. But they're getting a lot of imagery from Europe. They're getting a lot of imagery from different locations in the US and other commercial providers. And they needed a way to be able to help take all these different services that they're getting from European space agencies, Copernicus for different satellite missions and so forth, and bring that together. And so we've been working with another partner, the DIAS partner, to be able to help bring that infrastructure to them and put that in place. They have a lot of different ways that they're accessing the data, and we think about that always from the end user. How are they going to access that? Is it going to be through a web portal? Is it going to be through ArcGIS? Is it going to be through an ENVI, different type of interface? And they do all of that. But they needed help all the way through the back end of the whole program as well to understand the storage, how to access all the different services and so forth. So we were able to help put that together for them to help bring this whole cohesive picture into place so that they can have the full functioning workflow to be able to access the data feeds and the different imagery that they need, do all the analysis, storage, and present that information to the end users in various types of reports and alerts and so forth. Through these different projects that's been going on for a number of years now, the country has taken a big step toward protecting the rainforest. Now, those of you that have perhaps seen in the news, there's been a changeover in the government there and changeover in the president, and now that administration is looking to undo some of this. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over time, because this has been a successful project going on 4 years now. They've been able to start already doing a lot of detections, fly the imagery, fly the other data missions, get that processing done, and get those alerts already for the deforestation. So that's been successful so far. So we're hoping that the program can continue even under the new administration. Some of the next steps that we'll be working on with them is to help refine some of the analysis pieces, identify new deforestation areas, and the goal is to get that alert as quickly as possible. That is what they want to have. So as new data comes online and new analytics that we have are developed, we'll be working with them to help get that into their program as quickly as possible. So thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate your attendance here today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any at this point.